This is a disclaimer for what you're about to witness. So I am editing this video right now, and it took me about 5 hours to edit today. And it took me about an hour to film this, but don't watch this video in full screen, okay? I warned you, please don't. As you will see, as the video progresses, my face gets more and more shiny. And this is a combination of the fact that the place where I was filming had no AC, and it was like 100 degrees outside at the time. So it was hot out there. I literally am cringing at the fact that people are gonna watch this video, and I can't even look at myself anymore. Like I can't do it. It's just, I can't. So I was running through the options of what I could do, and I could refilm the video, which would mean like another hour of shooting, another 5 hours of editing, or I could pay $300 to download this software on the editing platform I use to de-shine my face. And I'm just not gonna do that. I'm also not gonna reshoot it. I warned you, this is your warning. Don't watch this in full screen, please. Maybe just even listen to it. You can go listen to it on Spotify if you don't want to watch me, which I recommend doing for this episode. So this is your last look at me when I'm not super oily and shiny. I apologize. I'm really tempted to just reshoot the whole thing, but I'm not gonna do that. This is your warning, and I'm sorry. I will try my best not to ever look like that ever again. Okay. I hope you enjoy. Okay, so again, if I'm looking over here, I'm looking at my notes. I wish that I could just like look directly at the camera and speak from memory, but if I'm not like going off of a script, this is going to be a big word salad, and I don't think any of us want that. When we upgraded our background, we upgraded our camera quality. Those other 3 videos were filmed on my iPhone because I forgot the charger for this camera, so you know, we're getting back into the groove, and I think that this is a better setup, but I might keep experimenting with it. Welcome back to Reasons We Believe. Today we are going to start diving deeper into the evidence for God's existence, remembering that we're not trying to prove the existence of any one specific God, of any one specific religion. You know, for the sake of conversation, this could be the God of Islam, the God of Mormonism, what have you. We're just talking about God in general, otherwise known as theism. Today, I'm going to be presenting to you the Kalam cosmological argument. If at the end of this you have questions or you'd like to know more about this argument, I'm going to link some work by a man named William Lane Craig in the description. I'm going to link a couple of his articles if you are just curious, and if you want to check them out, go ahead. I found that they're super resourceful. They do get pretty heavy into philosophy and science, but I mean, I'm sure that that's up your alley if you're listening to this. Highly recommend his work. He's super brilliant, and he's really well read up on this stuff. One of the reasons why I love the Kalam cosmological argument is because it bridges the gap that we've seen form in culture between this idea of faith in God and science. You know, these ideas really seem like they're 2 worlds that are so far apart, but I actually think that there's a different story going on here. I think that the fact that we can do science points to the existence of a God, but more on that later. So why even talk about this at all? I always like to explain why a topic is worth considering, especially when we're diving into something such as this. So to answer that question, why talk about this at all, I'm going to reference Derek Parfit, who is a contemporary philosopher. He says, "No question is more sublime than why there is a universe. Why is there anything rather than nothing?" In other words, why is there something in existence? Why is there a universe rather than nothing at all? Was Bertrand Russell right when he claimed the universe is just there, and that's all? Now you can answer that question for yourself, but I'm going to go ahead and lay out the argument. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. I got a comment on my reality video about how atheism doesn't always include a belief in cosmology or evolution. Since cosmology is the focus of today's topic, I wanted to very quickly address this topic. In my first 3 videos, I did assume for the sake of conversation that atheism involves a belief in cosmology and evolution, because a lot of the time those beliefs go hand in hand. Atheists do tend to be proponents of evolutionary theory, Darwinian evolution, and they do tend to believe that the universe came into existence on its own without any sort of divine agent or divine intelligence behind the universe. It is true that some atheists might have different views than this. They might vary on, you know, what sort of evolution they believe in, but for the most part, atheists believe in evolution, and by definition, they believe the universe came into existence without any sort of divine mind or intervention. Some atheists may take a more undecided positions on this. Someone who is unsure or more on the fence with the idea of God would be called an agnostic. I just wanted to say that so it's clear I'm not trying to generalize anyone's belief. But with all that being said, let's get into it. So the cosmological argument was developed by philosophers such as Aristotle and Al-Kindi, but it has been more recently touched on by William Lane Craig. He coined the term Kalam cosmology cosmological argument because of its historic roots in Islamic theology. So the argument goes like this: everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. So we're just going to start by unpacking the first premise. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. Another way of putting this is that being doesn't arise from non-being. Something cannot come into existence all on its own, out of nothing. Believing that something pops into existence out of nothing is more of a stretch than magic. If this can happen, why don't we see this all the time? We never see cars come into existence randomly out of nothing. We never see humans do this, or animals, or buildings, or really anything else for that matter. In case quantum particles come up in your brain when I talk about this, hold on to that thought, we're going to get there later. But we especially never see something as complex and ordered as the universe come into existence all on its own out of absolutely nothing. This first premise also has to do with the law of causality, which is the principle that every effect has a cause. And this law is at the foundation of science. Science is a search for causes, discovering what is the cause of an effect. Because of the law of causality, you can be certain that when you're done listening to this, you're not going to walk into your kitchen and find an elephant rummaging through your fridge. Because elephants don't just pop into existence out of nothing, randomly. Every effect needs a cause. So this first premise is easy enough to accept as true, but some of us might be hung up on that little nothing word. The universe popped into existence from nothing. What if that's not the case? What if there was something in the space-time universe that was always here? How do we know that there was a time when there was truly nothing? This is, I feel, an area of the argument that a lot of atheists will challenge. And, maybe validly so, because how can we be sure that there was truly nothing before our universe? How can we claim that? How can we claim that the universe popped into existence out of nothing? That's a good question, and we're going to address this in the next premise. So, the second premise. Did the universe begin, or has it always existed? This is where a lot of atheists jump in and make the claim that maybe the universe didn't arise from nothing at all, but rather from an eternal something that has always been here. They might argue that we can't be sure there was absolutely nothing before the universe began, or perhaps the universe didn't have a definite beginning. In my opinion, this is the part of the argument that holds the most weight. If the universe began, and if it came from absolutely nothing, then the fact that there is something here rather than nothing at all is completely miraculous. Something came from nothing. The very idea of this is just mind-boggling, and it defies our expectations based off of how we see the laws of nature normally operate. But is it true that the universe began? In order for the cosmological argument to have a true conclusion, its premises also have to be true. So, is it reasonable to believe that the universe began to exist? Did it have a definite beginning, or has it always been here? There are actually many reasons to believe that the universe had a definite beginning, but it wasn't until the 20th century that these reasons started to surface. Until the 20th century, most scientists thought that the universe was eternal. They thought it was infinite. But nowadays, it's relatively uncontroversial to claim that the universe had a definite beginning and that it hasn't always been here. In other words, it's pretty scientifically sound to claim that the universe had a beginning with a big bang to start it off. So I'm a theist, and I'm a very strong proponent of the Big Bang Theory. I just know who banged it. So let's get into some of these 20th century discoveries that I'm talking about. An article by the Scientific American reveals that researchers have confirmed the universe is slowly dying and running out of reusable energy. If the universe had been here forever, it would have run out of energy by now. This has to do with the second law of thermodynamics, which states that while the quantity of energy in a closed system remains the same, the amount of usable energy deteriorates gradually over time. Now, that was a lot of words. What does that mean? The universe is a closed system, so it applies to the second law of thermodynamics. It's a closed system with a certain amount of energy, which means that we will run into eventual heat death. So if in a fixed amount of time our universe will come to heat death, it will die out. The question is this: if the universe had been around forever, how has it not run out of energy by now? You can sort of think of this like a wind-up car. If you walk into a room and you see a little wind-up car in the middle of it, but no one is around, it's literally just you and the little wind-up car zooming around the room, you are naturally going to ask yourself, who wound that up? And as time goes on, the little wind-up car is going to start moving slower and slower until eventually it stops moving at all. The fact that this car is running out of energy means that its energy had a beginning. As J. Warner Wallace puts it, we are living in a wind-up universe that is winding down in front of our very eyes. this means it had a tightly wound beginning. Another piece of evidence to support the idea that the universe had a definite beginning is Einstein's theory of general relativity, pointing to how the universe is expanding. An expanding universe means a finite universe, since that expansion would have had to start at a single point in time. I really like an illustration that Stephen C. Meyer uses to sort of bring this point to life. Imagine you're blowing up a balloon and then you slowly start to let air out of it. Eventually you're going to get back to that single point in time when you blew it up. Just like blowing up a balloon has that starting point of expansion, so did the universe. The universe is expanding. It was when Einstein presented this theory that the infinite nature of the universe was challenged. However, because the idea that the universe was infinite, that it was eternal, was the most popular idea at the time, Einstein committed what he called the biggest blunder of his scientific career. Essentially, he applied a mathematical constant to his calculations to maintain the unchanging nature of the universe. He fudged the numbers to avoid coming to the conclusion that the universe had a beginning. As an article by Science Daily lays out, Einstein, even the most prominent atheist and faced with no definite beginning. Despite confrontation by many of his peers, Einstein refused to believe his own calculations for the theory of general relativity, pointing to an expanding universe. However, he was proved wrong in 1929 by a man named Edwin Hubble when he observed something called redshift. Redshift showed that some galaxies are moving far away from us. As summed up by NASA, Hubble's findings confirmed that the universe is really expanding. Einstein saw the necessity of a beginning once presented with redshift by Hubble. He actually went out and observed redshift with Hubble, and he admitted believing in an eternal universe was a grave mistake. Wow. Let's take a minute, let that soak in. Einstein made a mistake, guys. If Einstein made a mistake in his math, I think it's okay if we do that too. Alright, now I want to talk about something that Alexander Vilenkin said. Alexander Vilenkin is an agnostic professor of evolutionary science, which means he doesn't take a firm position on the existence of God. And he's a theoretical physicist, and he says this in his book Many Worlds in One. Cosmologists can no longer hide behind the possibility of a past eternal universe. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning. This is where we're going to get into that little nothing word I said we were going to sort of explore deeper. We have so far explored how it is logical and scientifically sound to conclude that the universe had a definite beginning. But was there truly nothing before the Big Bang? Note that the Big Bang theory states that not only our universe, but all of space, time, and matter had a definite beginning. Thus, it would follow, just looking at this theory from surface level, if all of matter had a beginning, the only logical conclusion is that before it was nothing. There could only be nothing before the universe if matter had a beginning. But we won't just look at the surface, we'll look a little bit deeper. Even the most prominent atheists and faces of science admit that the universe came into existence from nothing. Stephen Hawking goes on record stating, "I think the universe was spontaneously created out of nothing according to the laws of science." From Hawking himself, the universe came into existence spontaneously, and before it was nothing. Something I've seen in my comments on my previous videos is that no one says the universe came into existence from absolutely nothing at all. This isn't true. The claim that the universe came into existence from nothing isn't super controversial. It's currently the most scientifically sound claim in terms of the origin of the universe. Now, I do understand that leading scientific ideas change depending on new discoveries. I'm willing to accept the fact that I might be completely wrong, and this theory is bound to change if new scientific discoveries come into existence. But understand that I'm not basing my beliefs off of something I don't know to be true. This is not a God in the gaps. I'm not arguing based off of what I don't know. I'm arguing based off of what I do know, based on what we currently know to be the best and most scientifically sound claims about the origin of the universe. Alright, let's get back into it. Stephen Hawking has also said almost everyone now believes that the universe and time itself had a beginning at the Big Bang. Along these same lines, let's consider what Nobel Prize winner in physics Arno Penzias has to say. So my camera just stopped working because the battery got too hot, which honestly was probably a good thing because I could feel myself getting sort of too robotic with this. Sometimes when I'm talking about these types of things, I just want to start quoting things and like get the idea across, but this is a conversation, you know, like gotta keep it real. Sorry if I was getting a little boring to listen to. We're gonna hype it up now. As much as you can when you're talking about the cosmological argument. Back to where we were. Consider what Nobel Prize winner in physics Arno Penzias, I literally just looked up how to pronounce that. Oh, it's Arno. It's not even Arnold. Oh my gosh. Arno Penzias has to say. Okay, ready for this? He says, astronomy leads us to a unique event, a universe which was created out of nothing, and one which has an underlying, one might say, supernatural plan. Now, not to jump around too much between ideas, but let's defend the definite beginning of the universe a bit more. So, since we're talking about Penzias, I may as well talk about residual evidence from the cosmic background. I mean, naturally, if you're talking about Arno Penzias, you need to talk about the radiation afterglow, right? Like you have to talk about that. Alright, so what the heck does that mean? Basically, these two guys, Penzias and Wilson, were two American physicists and radio astronomers, and they were mapping signals from radio waves from the Milky Way galaxy. And while they were doing this, they accidentally discovered something called cosmic microwave background, or cosmic background radiation, which is the residual evidence of a cosmic flashbang, sort of like a confetti after you pop like a New Year popper. It's basically the leftover stuff from the Big Bang. And basically, if the universe leaped into being and expanded from a state of tons of heat and density, then we should find a lingering impact. These two men won a Nobel Prize in 1978, and this has been considered to be some of the strongest evidence for a Big Bang with a definite beginning. So even with some strong evidence supporting this argument, the cosmological argument has gotten a lot of heat and been the source of a lot of controversy for a long time. For example, theoretical physicist and self-proclaimed anti-theist Lawrence Krauss attempts to answer this question of why there is something rather than nothing. He suggests that the answer lies in a quantum vacuum. So this has to do with quantum cosmology, which states that the universe appeared from a quantum blur, came into existence by tunneling, and has since evolved in a classical way to form the universe that you and I experience. And just for reference, quantum particles are particles that pop in and out of existence, but the issue with this theory, with the quantum vacuum and with quantum physics applying to the origin of the universe in general, is that a quantum vacuum is something. It's a field of fluctuating energy from which particles pop in and out of being. Why believe that a quantum vacuum could be eternal? It too logically had a beginning, and it needs an explanation and a cause. It seems to me that this theory is simply just an attempt to shove God out of the picture rather than actually come up with what could be the most scientifically sound explanation for the origin of the universe. If an eternal quantum vacuum can exist, why reject an eternal God, a divine intelligence who ordered the universe? Now, there are other objections to the cosmological argument, some of the most popular ones being the multiverse and just ideas that there are pre-existing laws. Maybe the law of gravity has always been around and it sort of formed the universe, or at least the starting point. Now, right now, my plan is to make a whole episode dedicated to explaining and giving my thoughts on these objecting theories, but I do want to just briefly address them in this video as well. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and read a section of an article from Cross-Examine's website, which I'll provide the link to down below if you want to read the whole article or check out more content from their website. They're really great. Okay, so here's that quote. Positing a multiverse or a pre-existing law of gravity may provide an alternative to God as the uncaused cause, but it also demonstrates that even skeptics share that powerful sense that most people have that you just can't get something from nothing. That before a thing can exist, there must exist before it an adequate source. Moreover, believing in a multiverse or a law of gravity cannot explain the really interesting questions we also ponder that have little to do with physical creation and impersonal laws. How did life emerge from non-life? What is the source of information coded into DNA that is capable of producing not just life but consciousness and intelligence? The physical world does not provide examples of intelligence and language. So what can explain the information-rich blueprints that we know of as DNA? Why are there laws of nature, and why are order and beauty and design built into things if there is no designer? Why do we all recognize concepts like beauty, truth, and morality? You can do with that quotation what you'd like. I thought that it was really profound and that it related to these ideas. I just wanted to read it in case it sort of, I don't know, spark some intellectual paths that you can go down in your brain. Okay, so thank you guys so much for sticking with me here and for tuning into this episode. We're almost finished. We're wrapping up with the cosmological argument, but there were two more ideas I came across in the comment section that I want to just address really quick. Number one is the idea that the universe caused itself, and number two is the idea that the universe is a mind. Alright, so to touch on that first idea, in order for the universe to create itself, the universe would have had to already exist. Since nature had a beginning, nature cannot be its own cause. It would have had to exist before it existed to create itself. So put simply, I don't see how this could be a logical explanation for why the universe is here. I think that the idea here is maybe that the universe itself is a god and then it harnesses some sort of immense creative power in order to cause itself to come into being. And this sort of leads me into the next idea, which is that the universe is a mind. This is related to the idea that the universe is just one spiritual being, which I think is an idea we're starting to see more and more of, just sort of within the New Age way of thinking. This is reflected when some people, maybe something goes bad in their life and they might say, oh, this is a sign from the universe, or the universe is trying to tell me something. And from the outside, for me at least, this again just seems to be an attempt to replace God with something less logical, but maybe more comforting for the human mind. And if you're someone who holds to this belief, these are my questions to you. There's a couple, but I just want to get you thinking. What do you mean by mind? That the universe is a mind? Do you mean consciousness? Does the universe think for itself? What is the difference between this universe mind and God? So these were the two ideas I wanted to just touch on at the end of this video. Thank you so much to everyone who commented on those videos and shared your beliefs and your challenges and your support. It really means a lot to me, especially those who disagreed with me respectfully. It was kind of funny because I was talking to one of my good friends about the podcast and about the other videos, and I was just saying that I'd gotten so much support and of course naturally a lot of disagreements with my ideas, but that's expected when you put yourself out there online, especially when you're talking about something like, hey, there's a God and there's actually scientific evidence for it. Like, you're going to get backlash for that. But there were a couple comments that were a little bit more, comparing God to like a farting bearded man in the sky. I was like, yeah, I know that they don't hate me, they just hate my worldview and they hate what I believe in. And my friend was like, no, Natalie, they hate you. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, they hate you. You need to accept that. And I thought he was joking at first, but he wasn't. I don't think that you hate me, so hopefully you don't. Anyways, so today to wrap up, we talked about the Kalam cosmological argument, which states that everything that begins to exist has a cause. And the universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. We unpacked how it is plausible both premises of the argument are true. At least many leading cosmologists and astronomers would say so. So we can logically claim that the conclusion is also true. The universe has a cause. And since the universe cannot cause itself, because it would have had to exist before it existed to do so, its cause has to be beyond the space-time universe. This cause has to be timeless, spaceless, and immaterial, the three fabrics of our universe. It also has to be enormously powerful to create the universe out of nothing. And it must be personal, to choose to create, since impersonal forces, like the laws of nature, don't create something, they only govern what is already created. So this cause has to be outside the universe, enormously powerful and personal, sort of like an eternal creator or God. I'm already anticipating some disagreement on this issue, and I welcome that. That's expected and natural when discussing something such as this. I think that a popular idea in regard to the origin of the universe is that right now we simply don't have enough evidence or scientific ideas to how the universe came into being. We just simply don't know. But if we give science and scientists more time, one day we will find a natural cause for the beginning of the universe. This is also faith. This is having faith that one day nature will provide us an answer for the beginning of nature. Some might say that this is putting science in the gaps. But hey, I have faith too. My belief in God requires much faith. But hopefully now you might see that my belief in God isn't as far apart from science as you maybe thought it was at the beginning. My belief in God is also in tune with science and reality. Hopefully that gap between science and faith might be a little bit more bridged now. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Reasons We Believe, where we talked about the cosmological argument. Next, we are going to get into my favorite topic in apologetics, and really just to talk about in general. This is the fine-tuning of the universe, and then we're going to talk about DNA. I think that a lot of you are going to find it interesting. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know we got kind of sciencey today, and there's a lot more that I could have said, but if you want to check out more resources and more information on this topic, check the links in the description below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.